On the docket for today's Philadelphia 76ers now, could the Sixers sign Eric Gordon after he was let go by the Los Angeles Clippers? We have yet another James Harden update with NBA free agency set to begin tomorrow. Is Gabe Vincent the plan B if Harden does leave? And could B-Ball Paul be returning after the Sixers offer him that qualifying offer? Before we get into all of that, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, because if you're looking for the best year-round Sixers coverage, this is your go-to spot. And we're looking to reach another milestone, let's say by the end of the weekend when free agency is in full swing, because we're going to be talking about every single move that the Sixers make and the players that depart this organization. We're closing in on 11,000 subscribers. And for day one of NBA free agency, when the Sixers do make that Harden deal official, or if he does leave, we're going live right here on the program. So turn on those notifications. Therefore, whenever we push out a video or whenever we go live, you'll be notified. And with that, let's talk some Sixers right now. Could the Sixers sign Eric Gordon? He was let go by the Los Angeles Clippers, and now, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, he is an unrestricted free agent. I'm Chase Sr. This is Philadelphia 76ers Now. Appreciate all of you for being here with us. So Woj tweeting this out late last night. The Clippers are not guaranteeing Eric Gordon's $21 million contract. He will become a free agent. He's averaged 16 points per game on 37% three-point shooting in his 15-year career. What's crazy about this is that the Clippers picked him up last year from the Houston Rockets, and this move saves the Clippers $110 million in luxury tax. They're already paying a lot of money to Kawhi Leonard, Paul George as well, but $110 million for Eric Gordon, that's wild, and it's easy to see why they let him go. So the thought here with Eric Gordon is this. He's a good three-point shooter. The Sixers could certainly use one of those. He can also defend. He's 34 years old, a little bit of a problem, but if he's willing to take a cheap deal with a contender and come off the bench, you could do worse with the player coming in off the bench than a guy like Eric Gordon. You look at his tallies over the last 4 years, and 2 years ago, he was shooting more than 41% from three-point range on a lot of attempts. He can hover around that three-point arc, be a guy who you can count on to find twine from distance. He can create at least a little bit, and again, a pretty solid defensive player. And those bench numbers, I think, could translate to the Sixers roster. Around 13 points per game, 12 points per game. He'd be an upgrade over a guy like Shake Milton. He would give you better defense than a player like George Niang, although it's a different position because Niang plays that forward spot, Eric Gordon at that guard position. So a name to watch, in my opinion, for the Sixers as free agency looms beginning on Friday. Again, make sure you tune into our coverage. And if you're pumped up for NBA free agency, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. I think this is one of the most exciting parts of the NBA calendar for all teams across the NBA, and it's a hugely pivotal offseason for this particular team in the 76ers. Now let's shift gears to the latest on James Harden. Brian Windhorst, ESPN, saying, quote, "The indications are that James Harden is going to remain in Philadelphia." James Harden has until 5 o'clock Eastern today on Thursday to decide whether or not he's going to opt in to that player option or opt out and become an unrestricted free agent. If he opts in, then basically that's a one-year deal, or he can renegotiate a long-term contract extension with the 76ers. If he opts out, he becomes an unrestricted free agent. He can renegotiate a deal to make more money than the discount that he took last year, or he could obviously leave the Sixers for a different team in the NBA. Here's more from Windy on Harden. I don't think just because he opts out of it, which I would expect him to do, that it means that he is leaving. The indications are that James Harden is going to remain in Philadelphia. I would not say for sure it's a done deal, but those are the indications, and really it'll come down to what sort of contract they negotiate. He could get up to 4 years, and I'm sure Philadelphia, with a 33-year-old, would like it shorter, and that's part of the negotiation I think the Sixers have been working on in recent weeks. There's, of course, a report, too, from Mark Stein, who's continued to be on this story. But with Brian Windhorst, when the trade was made, sending Ben Simmons up I-95 to Brooklyn, bringing in James Harden, it was actually Wendy who kind of broke the story. He said, we're in the deal zone, obviously with those pointer fingers as well. And then let's go to Mark Stein here. Harden is increasingly projected to return to Philadelphia on a 2 or 3 year contract. I'm of the belief, and I'm more of a fan of the 2 or 3 year deal. If it's 4, he's 37 years old at the end of that contract. He's already shown some signs of aging and decline with injuries racking up. And how does the game kind of age as well for a guy who's never really put all that much into his physique? Some concerns that I do have on top of everything else that I've talked about here on the show. There's also this, Jake Fisher, Yahoo Sports, saying, in the event that James Harden leaves the Sixers, and Fisher did also say that the expectation is that Harden is going to come back to the city of brotherly love, that Gabe Vincent of the Miami Heat could be a backup plan. Now, he could be a backup plan for the Sixers if Harden leaves, or for the Mavericks if Kyrie Irving leaves. The latest on Kyrie, meeting with the Mavericks as well as the Phoenix Suns. Can you imagine a starting 5 of Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton? That team would be nasty. They wouldn't have a bench, but it would be a fascinating squad, no doubt. Gabe Vincent's career in the NBA. Undrafted free agent, a classic byproduct of that Miami Heat culture and their player development program. He has turned into a pretty solid player. First 2 games in the NBA Finals, he was really good. The last 3, he was not good. Against the Boston Celtics, he was really, really solid. And he could be a decent complement to Tyrese Maxey. Both can defend. He is a little bit smaller. This would be the ultimate consolation prize, which would be unfortunate if the Sixers lost out on James Harden as well as Fred VanVleet. But a guy who can certainly get to that mid-range area, knock down some shots from there, and be a relied-upon three-point shooter. With Daryl Morey pulling the trigger on these moves, with him at the decision-making helm, what's your level of confidence in Morey to get it right? 1 to 10. He's made some great moves. That trade last year for DeAnthony Melton got rid of Al Horford, Danny Green. The Seth Curry acquisition was a really, really good one. Trading the stiff and the fraud Ben Simmons for James Harden was a win for sure. So scale it for me 1 to 10. And if you want to talk Sixers with me on social media, I've had so many of you reach out. It's been awesome to chop it up with all of you, getting to know everybody at Chase_Senior on Twitter and Instagram. Don't be a stranger. Slide in the DMs and say what's good, my Philly Bull, #John. Michael Scotto with this update on Paul Reed before we hop on out of here today, that the 76ers will extend a qualifying offer to Paul Reed, league sources told Hoops Hype. Reed will become a restricted free agent after appearing in a career-high, very nice, 69 regular season games for the Sixers last year. I did a YouTube short on this, and I explained some of my thoughts. I like Paul Reed as a backup 4 or 5. What's interesting is that when he was putting up crazy numbers at the G League level, he was taking three-pointers and making them. Not to a great clip, but at least making them and taking them. That hasn't translated to the NBA level, but we saw in Boston hit a couple of big free throws down the stretch to ice that game away. I think it was game 1. And is a very active big who's pretty solid on both ends of the floor, a willing and energetic defender, a guy who is a very, very good athlete. And as he's gotten more season and experience, the game has slowed down for him a bit. And I do believe he has good potential as a rotational player. There's also this from Michael Scotto. The 76ers are not expected to extend Louis King a qualifying offer. He went off against Indiana at the end of last year. The 4-year pro will enter the market as an unrestricted free agent at 24 years old. You look at Reed's first 3 years, B-ball Paul, rookie year, barely played at all. He was up and down from the G League level, NBA level, 3.5 points per game, 2+ rebounds, less than 7 minutes per night. And then 2 years ago, minutes per game goes up to 8. And then this past year, Doc Rivers started to play him a little bit more. Then he was a part of that playoff rotation. Can he give you like 8 and 6 with more minutes? I think Nick Nurse has done a pretty good job of developing some bigs over time. Chris Boucher, Precious Achua. The list goes on and on and on. Could he do the same with Paul Reed? I'm certainly intrigued by that if he does come back to Philadelphia on an affordable price tag. B-Ball Paul is his nickname. Out the mud is his motto. Type OTM, out the mud for Paul Reed. He was selling those hoodies at the end of last year. Got to appreciate him trying to be marketable for sure. I want to round out today's show with this. I told you here on 76ers Now a couple of weeks ago that last week I would be traveling back to Philadelphia. We were going to hit that Phillies game on Tuesday against the Atlanta Braves. The whole reason I went back to Pennsylvania is because we had a family reunion in Lancaster last Wednesday, and my family from Australia was in town. That first picture was us outside of Citizens Bank Park. It was the first time that they went to a Phillies game. And the national sports over in Australia, the Down Under, mate, cricket, rugby, Aussie rules football. So for them to finally have the experience of going to a baseball game in the United States was a great experience. And it was so much fun. I hadn't seen my cousins in years. And then my two cousins, Laura and Amy, both have two kids. And I was able to meet three of those four for the first time. You see them here. That is Harper, it's Flynn, Harrison, and Noah, and we gave them a great tailgating experience. We got some Tony Luke's cheesesteaks, not my number one destination, but it's by the ballpark on Packer Avenue. Still very good cheesesteaks, and they hadn't had those before. And of course, we had to celebrate with some Yuengling beer as well. And once again, this is the photo of all of us outside of Citizens Bank Park, and I want to give a special shout out to Harrison, because him and his dad, Mark, are big 76ers fans, and they were rocking some Sixers gear while they were over in Pennsylvania visiting the United States. And Harrison, he thinks Tobias Harris is a little bit overrated and overpaid. We can all agree on that. He does like James Harden. I know a lot of you out there do like him, although the fan base is a little bit split. He also, him and Mark, his pops, they love Tyrese Maxey, who I've continued to say is definitely Philadelphia's young king. So the Aussie fam takes Philly. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Love the fam. It was great to see everybody. And we have made them Philadelphia fans. So that's a win at the end of the day. Appreciate all of you for watching Philadelphia 76ers Now. We'll catch you next time. Make sure you subscribe to the show.